Have you guys heard of Alan Shearer? The elders know him. You guys are Gen Z. You only know Haaland. Every year they ask Sir Alex, who would you love to sign? And do you know what he said, my brothers? Alan Shearer, Alan Shearer. He never played for a top 4 club, so guys don't understand what he was on. But he single-handedly, with one arm in the air, would turn decent teams into title contenders and even title winners. You might see him on Match of the Day and think he's yapping, but truth be told, he's been there and done that. A man born and raised in Newcastle, dedicating his prime years to his boyhood club, when 99% of people would have left the moment the big clubs came knocking. This brother wasn't interested in silky dribbling and flip-flaps. He was a 6-foot battering ram who would risk his body to crash headers into the back of the net, like a maniac jumping into a bush of nettles for no reason. If you ever see my man outside the box, just know he's about to lash it in from a free kick. Despite being the all-time top scorer in Premier League history, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. So grab your popcorn, let's watch some of the highlights of his career, from his younger days through to England and then retirement. Shearer was born in 1970 to a working class family who encouraged him to kick ball from early. By 16 he was scouted by Southampton, after originally starting off as a midfielder who wanted to get involved as much as possible. Immediately it was clear that he was too good to be chilling with these academy kids, and he made his professional debut within 2 years. Within a couple weeks, 17-year-old Shearer bagged a hat-trick against Arsenal to break Jimmy Greaves' record as the youngest to ever take home a first division match ball. But for some reason they had this monster in shackles and refused to give him a consistent run of games. Look how he'd shrug off grown men like it's nothing and have the coolness to finish straight after. Give him 1 yard of space and you're finished. He'd pop up with the odd goal here and there while acting as a facilitator for Matt Letizia. But it wasn't until he starred for England under-21s in the Toulon tournament that Southampton clocked what they had on their hands. In the 1991-92 season, he'd bagged 13 goals and suddenly his phone was ringing from all sorts of clubs, as well as the national team, where he'd obviously score on his debut. The 2 biggest clubs in England, United and Liverpool, were desperate to get the signature of this 21-year-old sensation. Southampton could no longer keep hold of this man who already racked up 43 career goals before the Premier League even existed. When the Premier League was introduced in 1992, it was Blackburn Rovers who broke the English transfer record to prize him away for £3.6 million. After his debut, it was looking like a bargain as he kicked off his run to the all-time Premier League top scorer with a brace. An ACL injury stopped him from charging for the Golden Boot, but he still bagged a solid 16 goals in just 21 games for you stats lovers. It was a similar story for England, where his goals during the World Cup 94 qualifiers made him a key member of the team, so his absence through injury meant they'd failed to qualify for the tournament. The 93-94 season is where his dominance became undeniable. 31 league goals propelled Blackburn Rovers to a title race out of nowhere, but despite scoring against Manchester United, it wasn't enough to overhaul them, and they'd end the season in 2nd place, with Shearer still being named Footballer of the Year. That previous season was just a little taster. Blackburn formed the original SAS by purchasing Chris Sutton to form a deadly duo ahead of the 94-95 season. It was like this guy was a vacuum cleaner because any loose ball was being scooped up and ended up in the back of your net. This man was look at the strength, but in English geezer form. He'd bag goals with his left foot, he'd bag with his right, inside the box goals, outside the box goals, barnstorming headers. In fact, he was now even trusted with penalty duty during the heat of a title race. But you know Shearer's lying by now. Pressure? What pressure? Pressures for tires. Geezer wouldn't even face the keeper or do any funny little skips. He'd just face the other way, turn around and blast it into the corner. And just like that, they'd won the league on the final day of the season. His haul of 34 goals was 9 clear of the next best Robbie Fowler. And naturally, he was awarded the PFA Player of the Year. The impact of UCL footy took his toll on them the next year as they finished 7th. But that didn't stop Shearer bagging yet another golden boot to smash his way through the 100 Premier League goal mark. And he carried his momentum onto Euro 96, where he'd finish as that tournament's top scorer too, with his 5 goals dragging England to a semi-final loss against Germany. Despite him scoring the opening goal and converting in the shootout that game, it was Gareth Southgate that ultimately cost them. Shearer's scoring prowess had United shamelessly double texting despite being left on red for the last few years. And when Real Madrid got aired as well, it was clear that he was only ever going to leave if it was for his boyhood club. Well, in 1996, Newcastle came and dropped £15 million on their head, an amount that, adjusted for inflation, would make him the most expensive player in history today at $222 million, ahead of Neymar and Mbappe to PSG. You don't need me to tell you, but it was 3 of the best. He's made them pay. He completed a hat-trick of golden boots and yet another PFA Player of the Year in his first season. It wasn't enough to push him to the title though, as Newcastle would finish runners-up again. Bear in mind, he was toying with these defenders while constantly battling with little injuries. You realise how much this guy just loves scoring goals for Newcastle. His second season, the injuries were more severe and he'd missed more than half the matches. Yet every time he came back, he was still throwing his body about and getting stuck in like a cat with 9 lives. He returned from injury just in time to score England's first goal of the 1998 World Cup whilst wearing the captain's armband on his sleeve. Once again though, he was the only scorer in the game where they were eventually eliminated. This time it was the infamous Beckham-Argentina red card match that sent them home. Back at club level, constant managerial changes didn't do much to stabilise the club, and they'd finish mid-table again, despite Shearer continuing to score roughly a goal every other game. His goals in the FA Cup semi-finals helped them reach the final for the second time in a row, but they finished runners-up again. He clearly had passion for the club to watch them constantly get beat by United to almost every trophy available and still stay loyal, and that commitment was undeniable when he got a red card on his 100th game for Newcastle. Someone who could score goals like this would obviously be frustrated when his teammates aren't on the same level, and yet his manager Hull decided to bench him and call him the most overrated player he's ever seen. While the fans weren't having it, they dashed him out and brought in Bobby Robson, and on his first day on the job, Shearer went and bagged 5 goals in one game against Sheffield Wednesday. The goals were now flowing, and he'd end the season with 23 in the league. Although he appeared to be back at his peak, he announced that Euro 2000 would be his last international tournament, as he was approaching 30 years old. Yet again, they needed to get this brother some help, because anytime he scored, his teammates would find a way to get England eliminated. His 30th international goal was to be his last, despite numerous attempts to convince him to come back for World Cup 2002 and Euro 2004. The turn of the millennium saw him score just 5 times, as he'd missed giant portions of the season through injury. When he plays with his full capacity 24/7 like this, it's no surprise his body was constantly in danger of giving up on him any minute. True elite sportsmen refuse to accept that they're ever finished. So in the 2001-02 season, Shearer decided to hit 23 goals again to elevate his side to 4th place in Champions League football. This man was simply defiant. You can tell from when he got into that scrap with Roy Keane. Side note, let me know in the comments who you think wins this fight, because I low-key think Shearer packs him in. The European stage allowed him to demonstrate his talents even further, with all-timers like Batistuta and Del Piero glowing with praise after he crashed it on Juve, scored a hat-trick against Leverkusen and bagged a brace versus Inter. In his 17th professional season, he'd passed the 20 league goal mark again, but Newcastle narrowly missed out on Champions League by 1 place, and he decided the following season will be his last. In 2004-05, Shearer had somehow scored more goals in Europe, 11, than in the league, 7. Naturally, at 34, his body had finally caught up to him, and he accepted that smashing the ball 100 miles per hour every shot isn't going to be sustainable much longer. And yet his goals were so important that Graham Souness convinced him to stay 1 more year. Perhaps he was fueled by the knowledge that he was about to break double figures again to break the 200 goals barrier for Newcastle and officially become their greatest scorer in history. Fittingly, his last goal would come in a 4-1 derby win over their rival Sunderland. Could he have stacked padded more trophies at United or in Spain? Sure, but winning a title with Blackburn meant he had nothing to prove to anybody, and he can now just live out his childhood dream of playing in front of the Gallagher end every other week. All he wanted to do was bring success to Newcastle, and despite not winning them a trophy as a player or in his short stint as interim manager, his legacy is virtually untouchable. 379 goals in 734 games means he stayed above that 1-2 ratio for the entire duration of his career, and in doing so made the one arm in the air celebration just as iconic as them men who are choreographing dances and hand gestures. Hopefully you men have been enlightened today. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video, comment if you think Haaland or Kane will ever break his record, and subscribe for weekly lessons every Monday. Class dismissed. Bosh.